Commander Zephyr Blackwood was having what his grandfather would have called a day that could make a saint swear. First, his coffee maker had died a spectacular death, shorting out half the appliances in his apartment. Then his hover commuter had decided today was the perfect day to forget how to hover, and now, staring through the windshield of his grounded vehicle at the massive shadow slowly engulfing Seattle, he was pretty sure this day was about to get exponentially worse. "You have got to be kidding me," he muttered, watching as a ship, and there was no mistaking it for anything else, larger than most small countries, positioned itself over the city. "This is not how I planned to spend my Thursday." The ship, a grotesque hybrid of organic curves and metallic angles that hurt the eyes if you looked at it too long, had appeared alongside 7 others across the globe exactly 17 minutes ago. No warnings, no diplomatic requests, no "take me to your leader" broadcasts. Just silent, ominous presence. Zephyr's communicator buzzed. Military protocol. As a commander in Earth's unified defense force, vacation time apparently ended when aliens showed up. "Blackwood," he answered. "Report to HQ immediately," came Admiral Wong's voice, tighter than he'd ever heard it. "They're taking people." Before Zephyr could ask for clarification, a beam of sickly green light shot down from the ship about half a mile ahead, illuminating a crowded intersection. When it retracted seconds later, the intersection was empty. No cars, no pedestrians, no traffic signals. Just smooth, circular depressions in the asphalt, where everything had been. "I see it," he said quietly. "On my way." He never made it to headquarters. The next beam found him 3 minutes later, and Zephyr experienced the peculiar sensation of being unmade, atoms separated, catalogued and reassembled elsewhere. It didn't hurt, which somehow made it worse. He materialized in a vast chamber alongside roughly 200 confused, terrified humans. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, and the air carried a scent like cinnamon mixed with ozone. "Well," drawled a woman beside him, her lab coat suggesting she'd been plucked from a research facility. "I always told my colleagues I wanted to be part of First Contact. Should have been more specific about wanting it to be voluntary." "Dr. Naomi Quintrell," she added, extending a hand. "Xenobiologist, though I'm guessing I'm about to become the xeno part of that equation." Zephyr shook her hand. "Commander Zephyr Blackwood, military. Though I'm guessing that's about as useful as an umbrella in a supernova right now." Before Naomi could respond, a section of the wall parted and 3 creatures glided in. They moved like liquid poured from invisible containers, smooth, flowing, inevitable. Their bodies resembled elongated hourglasses wrapped in iridescent scales, with 7 limbs of varying lengths emerging at seemingly random points. Where faces should be, they had intricate arrangements of sensory organs surrounding what looked disturbingly like exposed neural tissue. "Fascinating," Naomi whispered. "Distributed nervous system, likely evolved from a colonial organism." "Is now really the time for scientific observation?" Zephyr hissed. "If not when meeting aliens, when?" The lead alien extended a limb holding a device that emitted a series of harmonic tones. Moments later, a mechanical voice filled the chamber. "Specimens, you have been collected for study. Your world has resources we require. Your bodies contain data we need. Cooperation means less discomfort. Resistance means more. Simple concept, yes?" A businessman in a rumpled suit stepped forward. "Now see here, we demand to speak with your leaders about..." The alien moved faster than should have been physically possible. One moment it was 10 feet away, the next a limb was pressed against the man's neck, drawing a thin line of blood. What happened next would change the course of galactic history. The alien jerked back as if burned, emitting a high-pitched keening that made every human clutch their ears in pain. The alien's limb, where it had touched human blood, began to dissolve, scales sloughing off to reveal pulsing tissue beneath that quickly blackened and crumbled away. "Containment breach," the translator screeched. "Level 5 biohazard. The specimens carry corrosive venoms." The other aliens backed away in obvious panic. The wounded one collapsed, its body rapidly deteriorating from the small contact point with human blood. In the silence that followed, Naomi looked at Zephyr with eyes wide with realization. "Well," she said slowly, "isn't that interesting?" And that, dear listeners, was the moment the legend of the acid bloods began. The humans were quickly sealed in their chamber, now reclassified from specimen holding to extreme biohazard containment. Through the translucent walls, they could see frantic activity as aliens in protective gear transported their fallen comrade and established more stringent protocols. "Let me get this straight," Zephyr said, pacing the perimeter. "Our blood is acid to them? Like actual acid?" Naomi had organized the scientists and medical professionals among the captives into an impromptu research group. They had been comparing notes for the past hour. "Not acid exactly," she replied. "More like, our entire biochemistry is toxic to their biology. Our iron-based hemoglobin might as well be weapons-grade poison to their copper-based circulatorial system. The iron ions would catalyze chain reactions in their tissues. Plus, our pH level must be caustic to their cellular structure. So we're basically walking around filled with alien murder juice," asked Rex, a college student who'd been taken from a campus in Boston. "That's a colorful but not entirely inaccurate assessment," Naomi conceded. A soft-spoken elderly man who'd introduced himself as Professor Heinrich cleared his throat. "There's an exobiological principle called the death world theory. It suggests that planets with extreme conditions produce species with extreme adaptations. Earth, with its high gravity, is basically a hellscape by galactic standards," Naomi finished. "We evolved in conditions that would kill most advanced life forms. So we're not the invaders," Zephyr said slowly. "We're the monsters." Outside their containment, they could see the aliens' equivalent of scientists studying readings and data points, making frequent gestures toward the humans that, even across species barriers, clearly communicated distress. One alien, distinguishable by markings that resembled a midnight blue nebula across its central body mass, kept moving closer to observe them, displaying what seemed like curiosity rather than fear. Eventually, the translation device activated again. "Specimens, how have you weaponized your biological systems? What stellar civilization engineered your toxic properties?" Zephyr looked around the room, seeing confusion on his fellow captives' faces. "Nobody weaponized us. This is how we naturally evolved. On Earth. By ourselves." There was a long pause before the translator spoke again, the mechanical voice somehow conveying disbelief. "Impossible. No natural species carries such potent biochemical agents in vital circulation systems. The risk of self-destruction would be too great." Naomi stepped forward. "Our biology is perfectly balanced for our world. Our blood carries iron, our bones contain calcium, our cells utilize glucose, and our neural systems use electrical impulses. None of this is weaponized. It's just how we function." The aliens conferred among themselves in bursts of color that flashed across their scales, and pulses of what might have been infrasound that humans could feel rather than hear. "What are they saying?" Rex whispered. Professor Heinrich adjusted his glasses. "If I had to guess, they're recalculating the threat assessment of humanity and Earth. Well, they kidnapped a couple hundred of us and discovered we're toxic by accident," Zephyr noted dryly. "I'm thinking that assessment is trending negative." The nebula-marked alien approached the containment field again. "Your species designation has been updated to Class 12, Hazardous Biological Entity. Your world is now classified as Extreme Quarantine Zone. High Command has been notified." "That doesn't sound promising," Naomi muttered. "Query," the alien continued, "if all specimens possess toxic circulatory fluid, how do you reproduce without causing mutual destruction?" The question hung in the air for a beat before the entire room of humans erupted into laughter, a reaction that clearly startled their captors. "Oh my God," wheezed Rex, doubled over. "They think we melt each other during sex." Even Zephyr couldn't maintain his military bearing in the face of such cosmic absurdity. Through tears of laughter, he managed to gasp, "We're compatible with each other, just not with you." The aliens' confusion manifested as rapid color shifts across their bodies. The translator remained silent, as if the concept was too foreign to process. "I think," Naomi said once she'd composed herself, "we just became the most interesting specimens in their collection, and possibly the most dangerous." The nebula-marked alien tilted what passed for its head. "Your designation is updated again. You are now classified as Class 12, hazardous biological entities with cognitive anomalies." "Cognitive anomalies?" Heinrich questioned. "Your response to information about potential extinction is inappropriate. You display amusement where fear is logical." Zephyr smiled grimly. "Welcome to humanity, pal. We laugh in the face of death. It's kind of our thing." And somewhere in the vast ship, alarms began to sound. The nebula-marked alien, who had reluctantly identified itself as Class Thax, Science Overseer 3rd rank, became their primary contact over the next 12 hours. Unlike its colleagues, who maintained maximum distance from the human containment, Class Thax displayed what could only be described as scientific curiosity, overriding self-preservation. "Your species presents a taxonomic impossibility," Thax said through the increasingly fluid translator. "You should not exist." "We get that a lot," Zephyr replied, leaning against the containment wall. "Usually from our own historians." The humans had organized themselves remarkably quickly. Military personnel like Zephyr established a command structure, scientists formed research teams, even civilians found roles, from psychological support to creative problem-solving. Humanity, it seemed, became its most efficient when faced with alien abduction. "What's the status of the others?" Zephyr asked, referring to humans taken by the other ships. "Quarantined, like you," Claytax answered. "The Harmonic Collective is debating your fate." "Harmonic Collective?" Naomi inquired. "Is that your species or your civilization?" "Yes." Zephyr rolled his eyes. "Helpful." Professor Heinrich had been working with a group of chemists and a nurse to test the limits of their toxicity. Using a small blood sample from the nurse, they had demonstrated that even diluted human blood caused reactions in materials taken from the ship's interior. "Commander," Heinrich called softly, "you should see this." In a corner away from Claptek's sensory range, Heinrich showed him how a drop of blood on the floor had created a small but noticeable weakening in the material. "It's not dissolving it entirely," Heinrich explained, "but it's compromising the molecular structure. Given enough time and enough air, material, we could potentially create a way out," Zephyr finished. "But that would require more blood than we can safely give." "Not necessarily." Naomi joined them, keeping her voice low. "They've been taking small samples from some of us for their research. I've noticed they dispose of the contaminated equipment in a specific way. If we could access that disposal system, we might have our ticket out," Zephyr nodded. "But we still need a distraction and a plan for what comes after. We're in a massive ship filled with aliens who think we're walking biohazards." "About that," Rex chimed in, showing them a small device he'd somehow concealed. "I managed to snag this during the sampling. I think it's some kind of atmospheric analyzer. It's been collecting data on our containment area." Naomi examined it, eyes widening. "If I'm reading this correctly, they're maintaining a specific atmospheric mix in here that's different from the rest of the ship. They've created an Earth-like environment, which means the rest of the ship might be hostile to us," Heinrich warned. "Or," Zephyr countered, "they're vulnerable to our environment. Oxygen could be corrosive to them." "Brilliant," Naomi breathed. "Biological warfare using nothing but our exhalations." Their planning was interrupted when the ship suddenly lurched, throwing everyone off balance. The lights flickered and a new alarm, more urgent than before, began to wail. Claythax's scales flashed chaotic patterns. "Impossible, your planet is attacking." The containment field displayed external visuals. Earth's combined military forces had launched a coordinated assault on all 8 ships. It was brave, desperate, and, from what they could see, largely ineffective against the advanced alien vessels. "Your species truly is deranged," Claythax stated. "You attack despite certain defeat." "That's humanity for you," Zephyr said with grim pride. "We don't take kindly to people stealing our neighbors." Another impact rocked the ship. This time the containment field flickered momentarily, just long enough for Rex to toss the atmospheric analyzer through the gap. It hit Clinthax, creating a small cut on its outer membrane. The alien recoiled, its scales darkening in distress as the human-contaminated device began to react with its biology. But instead of deteriorating like the first alien had, Clinthax's wound sealed itself with remarkable speed. Adaptive immune response, Naomi observed with professional admiration. Impressive. You attacked me. Clinthax's translator conveyed something between shock and curiosity. Yet your toxic elements did not destroy me as they did the collector. Different biology, different reaction, Naomi suggested. Or perhaps you've been building tolerance by being around us. Clinthax's colors shifted to a pattern they hadn't seen before. The elders are wrong. You are dangerous, yes, but not in the way they believe. Your adaptability, your cognitive responses, these are the true threat. Another impact, stronger than before, sent systems into cascading failure throughout the visible sections of the ship. The containment field destabilized completely. Zephyr made a split-second decision. Instead of attacking Clinthax, he stepped forward with hands raised in a universal gesture of peace. "We can help each other," he said urgently. "Your ship is under attack. We can communicate with Earth, call off the assault, but we need assurances that your collective won't classify as a threat to be eliminated." Clinthax pulsed rapidly, its version of intense thought. The Harmonic consensus has already been reached. Your world was deemed too dangerous. The eradication protocols have been initiated. Eradication? Naomi gasped. You're planning to destroy Earth. Not destruction, sterilization. Your biosphere will be recalibrated to eliminate hazardous elements. Meaning us, Heinrich said quietly. And most complex life forms on our planet, Naomi added. They're planning ecological genocide. Zephyr's expression hardened. Then I guess diplomacy is off the table. Rex, who had been examining the ship's systems near their containment, called out suddenly, "Guys, I think I found their equivalent of an environmental control system." As alarms continued to blare and the ship shuddered under Earth's assault, the humans exchanged looks of grim determination. Without their containment field, they were now loose on a ship full of aliens who were apparently planning to eradicate their entire species. And they were carrying the deadliest weapon imaginable, their own biology. "Well," Zephyr said, a dangerous smile spreading across his face, "let's introduce the Harmonic Collective to a little human dissonance." The following events, while sanitized for younger audiences across the 17 galaxies, remain among the most consequential in the Collective's 10,000-cycle history. The freed humans moved through the ship like a meticulously coordinated strike force. Zephyr, falling back on military training, split them into teams with specific objectives: locate communication systems, find ship controls, secure an escape route, and, most critically, disable whatever sterilization technology threatened Earth. What they lacked in numbers, they made up for with the universe's most unexpected advantage. The aliens were more afraid of them than they were of the aliens. "It's like psychological warfare in reverse," Zephyr remarked, as another group of collective members fled at the mere sight of humans approaching. "They think we're walking biological weapons." "To be fair," Naomi replied as she examined an alien console, "we kind of are." Clax, in a decision that would later earn it the designation, the great aberrant in collective history, chose to assist the humans. Whether from scientific curiosity, emerging ethical awareness, or simple self-preservation calculus, it provided crucial information about ship layouts and systems. "The central harmonic chamber controls all major functions," it explained, leading them through passages designed for physiology entirely unlike their own. "But it is heavily defended." "Define heavily," Zephyr requested. "The chamber guardians have been biochemically shielded against your toxic elements. They also possess disintegration technologies." "Great," Rex muttered. "So our one advantage is neutralized." Professor Heinrich, who had been quietly experimenting with different materials aboard the ship, cleared his throat. "Perhaps not entirely." He held up a small vial of cloudy liquid. "Our blood, combined with certain ship components, creates a compound that appears to disrupt their technology. It's not as directly harmful to their biology, but it affects their systems." You MacGyvered alien acid in the middle of an invasion? Rex asked incredulously. Heinrich adjusted his glasses with dignified pride. I am a chemist, young man. This is literally my job. They encountered the first chamber guardians at a junction of pulsating corridors. The aliens were larger than Clethax, their bodies encased in protective coverings that prevented any direct contact with human biology. The defensive posture indicates they are prepared for you, Clethax warned. Zephyr assessed the situation. We need a distraction. Already on it, said Naomi, who had been working with the ship's environmental systems. Ready, now. The atmospheric controls, she'd modified, suddenly flooded the corridor with air containing elevated oxygen levels. Similar to Earth's atmosphere, but concentrated enough to act as an irritant to the collective's biology. The Guardians' protective coverings, designed to shield against direct contact with humans, did nothing against the changed air composition. They began to move erratically, their coordination failing. Now, Zephyr commanded. Heinrich's team sprayed the makeshift disruptive compound on the Guardians' technology. The effect was immediate. Their weapon systems sputtered and failed, protective coverings malfunctioned, and communication devices emitted painful feedback loops. The humans pressed forward, using the confusion to access deeper sections of the ship. Throughout the vessel, similar scenes played out as teams executed their objectives, with the desperate efficiency of a species fighting extinction. In the communications hub, a team led by a radio engineer named Phoenix managed to establish contact with Earth. This is Phoenix, broadcasting from alien vessel over North America. We are inside. Repeat, humans have taken partial control. Hold off on major strikes if possible. Target engines and weapons only. We're going to try to disable their sterilization technology. The response was immediate. Copy that. Coordinating global response now. What's your status? Currently fighting our way to central control. These aliens? Turns out they're allergic to us. Like, our entire biology is toxic to them. There was a pause before Earth responded. So, you're saying we're biological weapons? Affirmative. Humanity's greatest defense is apparently just being human. As they approached the central harmonic chamber, alarms throughout the ship changed tone. Clethax's scales flashed with urgent patterns. The sterilization sequence has been accelerated, it translated. Planetary reconfiguration will begin in moments. They burst into the chamber, a vast dome-like structure where dozens of the collective coordinated through a living network of neural interfaces. At the center stood a pulsating crystalline formation that Clethax identified as the Harmonic core, the ship's primary control system. That's our target, Zephyr declared. Disable it. The chamber aliens reacted immediately, surrounding the core in defensive formation. Unlike the Guardians, these were the ship's elite, and they had been thoroughly prepared for human contamination. Physical approach is impossible, Clethax stated. The core is now protected. Naomi studied the chamber's design, noting the intricate ventilation systems. We don't need physical contact, she realized. The entire chamber is connected to atmospheric controls. If we can introduce our compound through the ventilation... Heinrich nodded, already modifying his formula. It would affect the core directly. While teams engaged the defenders in a bizarre battle, humans using their very presence as a threat, aliens maintaining distance while deploying increasingly desperate countermeasures, Naomi and Heinrich worked to access the ventilation system. Ready? Hienian finally announced, attaching the vial to an improvised delivery system. Zephyr gave the order. Do it. The compound dispersed through the chamber's atmosphere, creating an immediate reaction. The crystalline core began to vibrate discordantly, its structure developing microscopic fractures. The neural interfaces connected to it sparked and failed, leaving the collective members disoriented. It's working, Naomi exclaimed. Then, catastrophically, the core's destabilization triggered a cascade effect throughout the ship. Systems began to fail in sequence, including life support and gravitational controls. The ship is dying, Clethax announced, its translator conveying something like awe. You have created disharmony in a system designed for perfect resonance. Is the sterilization technology disabled? Zephyr demanded. Yes, but... Claude scales flashed urgent patterns. The ship will soon begin atmospheric re-entry. Without control systems, it will break apart. All aboard will perish. Zephyr exchanged looks with his fellow humans. They had succeeded in their primary mission. Earth was safe, but at the cost of trapping themselves on a doomed vessel. What about escape pods? Rex asked. Ejection systems require harmonic authorization, Clitax explained. The disharmony you've created prevents access. As the ship shuddered around them, beginning its uncontrolled descent toward Earth, Zephyr made another fateful decision. Clitax, can you repair enough of the core to regain basic flight control? Possibly, but the disruptive compound will help neutralize it, Naomi interjected, already understanding Zephyr's plan. We can create a counteragent. As the humans and their unlikely alien ally raced to prevent total destruction, a new message came through from Earth. All ships are showing critical failures. 7 are on trajectory for unpopulated areas. Your vessel is headed for the Pacific. What's your status? Phoenix responded, working on not dying, stand by. In the chamber, Heinrich and Naomi's counteragent allowed Galactic to establish limited connection with the damaged core. With remarkable adaptability, the alien redirected remaining power to stabilization systems. Partial control restored, Clauthax announced. Impact trajectory modified. Survival probability increased to 37%. Those aren't great odds, Rex observed. Better than 0, Zephyr countered, securing himself as best he could. Everyone brace for impact. The ship, once a perfect expression of alien technological harmony, broke through Earth's atmosphere as a tumbling mass of fractured systems and failed designs. Its controlled descent was more of a managed catastrophe, skimming across the Pacific Ocean's surface before coming to rest half-submerged near an uninhabited island. And as rescue vessels approached the wreckage, humanity prepared to formally introduce itself to the galaxy, not as conquerors or victims, but as the terrifying species whose very blood could bring an advanced civilization to its knees. The legend of the Acid Bloods had only just begun. From the archives of the reformed Harmonic Collective, Cycle 7889. The events aboard the 8 collector ships would reshape galactic politics for millennia to come. When the dust settled and communication was established between humans and the surviving collective members, the full implications became clear. Humanity had inadvertently announced its presence to the wider galactic community by defeating a civilization thousands of years more advanced. The remaining ships of the Harmonic fleet withdrew to safe distance, maintaining observation but no longer attempting collection or planetary modification. A tense standoff ensued for 6 standard cycles before formal diplomatic channels were established, with Clitax now bearing the unprecedented individual designation bridge between dissidents, serving as intermediary. The term Acid Bloods began as a military designation in collective communications, but humans, with their peculiar capacity for embracing fearsome labels, adopted it with characteristic pride. Earth's first diplomatic vessels bore the stylized image of a red blood droplet against a field of stars, a symbol that would eventually become the most recognized and feared emblem in 17 galaxies. The irony, Zephyr remarked at the first formal contact ceremony 5 years later, now serving as Earth's chief security advisor, is that we were never the most dangerous thing on our planet. We've got animals that are far more toxic than we are. This information is not helpful for interspecies relations, Naomi, now Ambassador Quintrell, muttered through a diplomatic smile. On the contrary, replied the collective Harmonic representative, its translator now sophisticated enough to convey nuance. It explains much about your species' peculiar evolution. You developed intelligence as a defense against your own world. The biological uniqueness of humans led to a complete recalibration of galactic xenoscience. Professor Heinrich, before his death, at the respectable age of 103, established the foundation for comparative xenobiology, which would eventually identify 16 other Death World species across the galaxy, though none quite as paradoxically fragile and lethal as humans. Rex, whose quick thinking aboard the collector ship had proven invaluable, turned his unexpected fame into a successful career in xenotechnology, developing interfaces that allowed incompatible biologies to interact safely. His most famous invention, the handshake barrier, became standard equipment for all interspecies meetings. As for Clartax, its decision to assist humans resulted in a philosophical schism within the collective. The concept of individual choice, previously anathema to their harmonically oriented civilization, began to spread, eventually leading to the reformed, harmonic collective that exists today, where unity and individuality are balanced rather than opposed. But perhaps the most significant outcome was humanity's reputation. The species that had once feared itself alone in the universe discovered that it was, in fact, uniquely positioned in the galactic hierarchy. Humans were not the most technologically advanced, nor the most numerous, nor even the most intelligent by certain measures, but they were universally recognized as the most adaptable and, paradoxically, the most unpredictable. The problem with humans, as one J. Hextall philosopher famously observed, is not that they are toxic to most life forms, it's that they treat this fact as a source of amusement rather than caution. This unique perspective extended beyond biology. Human art, with its emphasis on conflict and resolution, baffled and fascinated species evolved for harmony. Human governance, with its messy democratic processes, seemed chaotic yet strangely effective to hierarchical civilizations. Even human cuisine, carefully modified for alien biologies, became a daring status symbol in certain galactic circles. Earth itself transformed from an obscure world to a heavily restricted but intensely studied planet. The term Earth tourism entered the galactic lexicon, describing the practice of viewing dangerous but fascinating phenomena from safe distance, much like humans themselves had once visited zoos or watched storm chasers. "We've become the galactic equivalent of Australia," Zephyr joked during the centennial celebration of First Contact. Now, in his later years, he had witnessed humanity's expansion to nearby star systems and the gradual integration of Earth into galactic affairs. Everything here evolved to kill everything else, and somehow we think that's normal. "It is our normal," Naomi reminded him. "And now, the galaxy has to adjust its definition." Over centuries, humanity's biological peculiarity became less defining than their cultural contributions. The acid blood moniker evolved from fearsome warning to almost affectionate nickname, much as humans might refer to particularly spicy food or potent beverages. The collective, once nearly destroyed by contact with humans, eventually became their strongest allies, recognizing that perspective gained through difference was more valuable than harmony maintained through sameness. The dissonance that humans represented, their contradictory nature, simultaneously fragile and resilient, offered insights that purely harmonic thinking could never achieve. When the Hive convergence threatened galactic stability in cycle 7300, it was this alliance of opposites that prevailed. Collective harmony with human dissonance, creating a defense the convergence could neither predict nor overcome. And so, young students, we come to the end of today's historical study. As you return to your biologically isolated habitation spheres, consider this. The universe contains paradoxes that no single species can comprehend alone. The humans, with their iron blood and oxygen addiction, their tendency to laugh at danger and create art about their own destruction, remind us that evolution takes countless paths. The legend of the acid bloods is not merely about biological incompatibility or accidental first contact gone awry. It is about the fundamental truth that diversity, even dangerous, inconvenient, messy diversity, strengthens rather than weakens the galactic community. And somewhere on a once unremarkable planet circling a yellow star, humans are probably still laughing about it. End historical archive entry. Mandatory biological decontamination will commence before next learning cycle.